First, of course, I have to lower the mic a bit. Joe is, of course, much better in down than I in terms of height. Good night, fellow Barbadians, fellow comrades in arms, fellow citizens who yearn and hope and desire and long for a better life for our people. We have had 8 years of abysmal political leadership under the Democratic Labour Party, where the socio-economic circumstances of Barbados have declined. Barbados today is now a smaller economy than it was in 2007 when the Barbados Labour Party was last in office. Don't mind all of this talk, for instance, about a lot of tourists coming to Barbados. Today, this winter season, the amount of tourists who came to Barbados this winter are no more than those who came in 2007. We have, as a Barbados Labour Party, a duty to you, our fellow countrymen, to rescue Barbados from the incompetence of this government which we are now yoking under. The Democratic Labour Party promised a Barbados that is socially balanced, economically viable, environmentally sound, and characterized by good governance. You know, a lot of rhetoric that is not matched by deeds in any way whatsoever. What we have had is a plethora, one after another, of broken promises since they came into office in 2008. We've had broken promises in terms of the cost of living reduction, which they said they would tackle as a matter of priorities 1, 2, and 3. We've had broken promises in terms of housing for first-time homeowners and incentives that were to be given to young Barbadians to acquire houses and land and get a part of this rock. We've had broken promises in terms of Barbadians, period, paying for homes in mortgages, whereby the mortgage interest that you used to get as a tax allowance is now taken off. We've had broken promises in terms of land for the landless and lands that were to be sold, lots that were to be sold at $5 a square foot. None found as yet. After 8 years, can't identify one such lot in the Ministry of Housing. We've had broken promises in terms of public servants, teachers, firemen, policemen, nurses who were to be given interest-free car loans. We've had broken promises all around by this government. And, you know, if your woman or your man were to break so many promises to you after they tried to get you in the first place, you would have fired them ever long time since. But unfortunately, we have to wait another 2 years before you, the people of Barbadians, the people who ultimately have the decision-making power, you, the people who are the voice of the Lord, or through whom the voice of the Lord is said, you have to wait another 2 years to change this government. But we in the Barbados Labour Party have no doubt that you will do just that. We will be in a position, our team led by Mia Amo Motley, and including people like Glenn Clark, who spoke to you just now, and Dwight Sutherland, who is here tonight, my fellow new parliamentarian, we will be in a position to take over at that time, or whenever an election is called, and to bring this country back to a sound socio-economic footing, a sound governance structure. Let's look at education. As Joe said, we will look at and the broken promises in education and the way how the Democratic Labour Party has completely mismanaged the educational system in this country, led by the longest-serving Minister of Education in the history of Barbados, since the Ministry of Education was founded as a separate ministry in 1954, and led by a man characterized not by Edmund Hinkson or by the Barbados Labour Party alone, but by the media of Barbados as the worst of 13 ministers of education since they had such. The first promise that they made that was broken was the promise to expand the textbook system to primary schools. You will know that, of course, Tom Adams started the textbook system and Louis Tull in the mid to late 1970s, and that was established in the secondary schools, and the DLP government promised to expand that to the primary school system. But instead what we have is chaos and crisis in the secondary school textbook system. Children can't get the books old and tattered, and that is in chaos. Not one word about free or about textbooks for children at subsidized cost or free as in secondary schools since the DLP came to office in 2008. We know that children, our primary school children, have different talents. Not everyone has the same talents. We are all born different. We all have different skills, and therefore any caring government would ensure that all children have or acquire the skills in primary school that could meet their special talents. And one would think that any government would concentrate, therefore, on expanding its school curriculum to allow for more drama and music and art and craft and sports and information technology, and would introduce and expand the learning of foreign languages, which is so vital in the world now as the world becomes smaller. But rather than any curriculum reform, we've had none in the 8 years of the Democratic Labour Party government. Still the same curriculum reform that would have come into place when Mia Mottley was Minister of Education, and Cynthia Ford here, of course, hard-working, dedicated Cynthia Ford was Minister of State in that ministry in the year 2000. Instead, what we seem to have, based on the evidence before us, is political partisanship in the Ministry of Education. There seems to be more concern about placing Dem supporters and DLP members in jobs in the Ministry of Education. That is all that we have. We had the promise exactly 2 years ago of the appointment of over 700 teachers to permanent positions. 400 were appointed. About 19 months after that, in September last year, a far cry from the 700 to 800 that were promised in the first place. And none other than the Barbados Union of Teachers saying that they had partisan political considerations in a lot of those appointments. In other words, Dems appointed without merit over and above people who should have been appointed, but because they were not DLP supporters or they didn't hold a party card, they were not appointed. Now that can't happen. That ought not to happen in a Barbados in 2016. We should be getting the best teachers appointed to teach our children. Barbados has always had the competitive edge over our Caribbean neighbors, over other small developing states in the world, over other third world countries in terms of education. That market competitiveness has been eroded tremendously in the last 8 years. In 2008, the Democratic Labour Party in its manifesto promised to increase the school leaving age to 18 years But again, we've heard nothing of that promise. Nothing whatsoever of that commitment since they came into office. So you have over 40% of school children leaving secondary school without any marketable certification at the present time. And this is not good. What hope are we giving our young people in this country if at age 16 they leave school without any marketable certification, with a University of the West Indies largely closed off because of the imposition of school fees, with inadequate amount of spaces at the Polytechnic and at Barbados Community College, and with a skills training program that again has limited spaces? What hope are we giving to the future of our country, to the youth of this country? But before they reach that stage again in primary school, we have a situation, yes, as Joe said, where parents are being asked in many primary schools, look, give your children some toilet paper to walk with when the day comes. And you could help the school with a little Clorox or Discipline because we ain't got any money in the budget to give us. The Ministry of Education is supposed to send money in various proportions depending on the amount of children in the primary school to the school at the start of each term. And invariably in the last few years, that money, that grant is being sent near the end of the school term. So the school term long advanced and the school doesn't have money. In some cases, the teachers have to take the money and buy the school supplies. The parents, who under real pressure already, being asked to help out with school supplies. This is the Barbados that we have descended into under the Democratic Labour Party government. We have a situation where, as Cynthia said in Parliament this week, and Mia, in fact, before Cynthia, where we have poor nutrition generally in terms of the school meals that are being offered to the primary school children. We know that for a fact. The Minister of Education spent the first 5 to 10 minutes of his 30-minute speech on Tuesday reading out a chart of what children, he said, that children are given in school meals on a periodic basis. But the thing is, while he was talking, Cynthia and Dwight were receiving text messages from constituents saying, what he's saying can't be right. When my child was given bread and tuna, a little piece of tuna today, so what he's saying here about all this food? But Dwight, I believe, would still have it right there if he wants, show you here tonight. So what's going on? Where is the money voted for school meals going? And we can come to that in terms of transparency and accountability before we wrap up here tonight. So we have a situation where after children now leave, our children leave secondary school, what are they to do? Barbados Community College has now been voted $700,000 less than it was voted last year, and BCC already under tremendous pressure. The plant barred, they wanted to let go about 70 staff, and of course the union kept a lot of noise and saved the jobs. But BCC right now, any government that is caring and competent will be looking to expand BCC so that they could bring in more children at age 17 and 18, more young adults, so that you could expand the courses at BCC, so that you could have more courses which you can take for associate degrees at that institution and take off some of the burden from the university. Same thing with the Polytechnic. Of course, vocational training and more hands-on approach. And you should be looking to expand the polytechnic rather than voting only the same amount of money for this coming year as you voted last year. But that is a myopic government, a government that doesn't have any vision, a government that just cut in here, there, right through the stream without determining what are the priorities and without understanding that the education of our people has been what has put us above countries of the same level and in terms of development, political development and social development coming out of colonialism and in terms of size. But that is where we are in Barbados right now, and skills training, you know, which again should be expanded. Certainly, my constituents, we would love to be able to get more people into skills training. And even though we have been successful in getting quite a few constituents into skills training, there is still need for greater space in terms of skills training for our young people so that they can be able to get talent and career and skills. There is need to give our young people basic life skills and training now, not only academic skills or training in the technical stuff, but skills that will be able to carry them through life, basic life skills. How to apply for a job, how to behave and speak and present yourself at a job interview after you get a job, how to treat to your fellow employees and your boss on the job. Basic life skills. And we certainly in St. James North, and the president of the branch is here in front of us tonight, will tell you that we would have had a life skills program which we put on our foundation. Since government doesn't do these kind of things, and the Ministry of Social Care and all of those don't do them, we put it on ourselves, and 20 odd young adults graduating from the program in December, and many of them getting jobs since that time. These are the kind of initiatives that a caring government, really interested in educating young people and giving young people skills, would be interested in. But we don't get that from the Democratic Labour Party government. We just survived a whole 5 days of estimates from morning through noon, afternoon and night. And we come out of there at 8:30 last night without any discernible strategy or ideas as to how this government plans to take Barbados out of this abysmal economic and social recession. A recession whereby since they came into office, the economy has not grown by more than 1% in 8 years, after growing in the 13 or 14 years under the Barbados Labour Party on each occasion by more than 1%. The facts speak for themselves as to which party is better in terms of improving the quality of life of Barbadians. Not even an idea from the Democratic Labour Party as to creating a situation where our young people can be, who are not going on to higher tertiary education, can be put into youth service to give them skills, to equip them to be able to survive in this world and to still get employment, to expand the youth service, to make it compulsory, let's say, for people on the block, fellas on the block, or compulsory for those who go to university, to be able to give them the mental desire to put back into society after the taxpayers have paid for them to a large degree in terms of education. No new thought coming out from 5 whole days of estimates, 40 hours. Just a lot of long talk from the government. Continuing to blame the Barbados Labour Party that has not been in office for over 8 years for their inadequacies. and continuing to blame an international economic recession that finished 5 years ago. The United States of America, one of our major trading partners, expanding for the last 3 or so years, 4 years under Barack Obama, over 250,000 people each month getting jobs. Unemployment in America now down below 5%, but still be blaming what's happening in America for the incompetence of big men and big women. I abhor when big men and big women do not take responsibility for their failures and seek to shift blame on others. It is not good. It is not right. But the pride of place in terms of the incompetence of the education policy of the Democratic Labour Party goes to how they've treated to the University of the West Indies. Now, just over 50 years ago, University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, was created. And you know, we're not going to argue over who started the process. I mean, a house has to have a proper foundation to start. And there's no doubt that Sir Grantley Herbert Adams, who was in fact the first Minister of Education in this country, a lot of people don't realize that, started the educational foundation of Barbados. In fact, it might have been started even before that, if we argue, because they had many primary schools in Barbados from the early part of last century. But we know that close to here, for example, in St. Leonard's, they had free education from the 50s, just across the road for the people in New Orleans and Westbury Road and other places. So that is an indisputable fact. But we're not arguing. Both political parties in the past have done their tremendous bit in terms of putting Barbadians on a sound educational footing. Just over 50 years, we had the University of the West Indies, and don't let's fool ourselves, no Barbados government has been able to afford free tertiary education in Barbados. No Barbados government, whether BLP or DLP, has been able to afford it. But previous to this government, both political parties found money to fund comprehensively free tuition fees at the University of the West Indies for Barbadians. And you know why? Because 80% of Barbadians who go to the University of the West Indies from poor working class backgrounds. The parents could not have afforded to send them to university but for free tertiary education. That is a fact. Because when you're suffering, you got invariably more than one child, a lot close in age to each other, your salary ain't much, you're under pressure in terms of housing, you're under pressure in terms of buying clothes for your children, feeding them. So to pay for education now at university now is a stretch. But this government suddenly, like if it's looking for an accident, like if it's an accident looking for somewhere to happen, 2 years ago, makes a decision without consulting you, the people of Barbados, to impose tuition fees on Barbadians starting at $6,000 going up to $20,000 a year. And not putting anything in place to cover that. They announced bursaries soon after that. The bursaries take a whole 19 months to come. And when they come, they add the $3,000 that they told you. They're a maximum of $1,800 in more than one installment. The minister read out some figures, about 400 people get bursaries once. That is what we have in Barbados. Last year, August, they announced grants and scholarships program. Again, that hasn't taken off the ground. Still, university students talking about how they lack funding and they don't know if they're going to continue. A brainless person would understand that under those circumstances, a Barbadian population at the University of the West Indies must decline by close to 40% in the first year and at 30% now. But that is what is happening. And a government now owing a debt to the University of the West Indies, $145 million, after they promised to pay off $40 million every quarter towards that debt. But that is a visionless government. Broken promises again made by the Democratic Labour Party to win the government again in 2013, whereby they were going to give students a $5,000 income tax credit each year towards tertiary education and training. Nothing heard about that since being re-elected to office. They were to give an income tax credit of $5,000 on interest on loans secured from the Student Revolving Loan Fund. Nothing heard on that issue. Instead, all tax allowances coming off, except the tax allowance that you pay to your trade union for membership of trade union, and a one-off tax allowance to a charity. And that charity would include your church. And many of you all Barbarians, including you all out here, give to your church. So when you give to your church now, you can't give down the road to the Salvation Army, for instance, that needs money to feed people on a daily basis. But that is a government that you have right now. We don't even need or have time to go into the issue of governance, because they talk about how their leadership will be characterized by good government. No anti-corruption